All right, now we're going to round out the ranking players by position series with the top 10 tight ends headed into the season. So let's kick it off with number 10. We have Darren Waller. Darren Waller kind of been plagued by some injuries in the previous couple of years when he exploded with Derek Carr. I think he's going to get back into form here with the Giants. He's already had a great camp so far. I think his athletic ability, his size, and his ability to score in the red zone is going to be beneficial for the Giants here going into this season. So Darren Waller at 10. We're going to look at some stats here for him. He only had 28 receptions, 388 yards, basically 14 yards per reception, and 3 receiving touchdowns in his couple games that he played with the Raiders last year. Like I said, he was plagued by injuries, came back at the end of the year. Still showed some glimpses here and there when he was playing, but I think he is too athletic and too dynamic of a tight end for him not to be on my top 10, and he's going to be in a good system with Saquon, Jalen Hyatt, Paris Campbell, and hopefully this is definitely giving Daniel Jones some more weapons to choose to throw to this year, so look for Danny Jones to have a good year with some more weapons this year. So Darren Waller at 10. Moving on to number 9, we got Pat Freiermuth, tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pat is a Mr. Do-It-All. He kind of reminds me of a much better version of Jack Doyle. I mean, he can block, he can go out and catch the ball. He's one of those Iowa tight ends. You know, Iowa tight ends are going to be lethal and dynamic in the NFL. He's going to be able to produce numbers catching the ball, and he's going to be able to block for his running back and his quarterback. So Pat Freiermuth at number 9. Let's look at some stats. 63 receptions, 732 yards receiving, 11 yards per reception, and just 2 touchdowns. I think we're going to see Pat Freiermuth in the end zone more this year with more experienced and Kenny Pickett having more of an offseason to work on his game, build connections with his receivers and his tight ends and his running back this year. So I'm looking for Pat to have a big year this year, especially in the touchdown category. So Pat's going to be at number 9. Number 8, Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram he's what in baseball you call a 5-tool. I mean, he can do it all. His blocking is a little iffy sometimes, but when he was first with the Giants, there was so much potential for this kid to explode onto the scene. I mean, he has the speed, the height, the hands, and then all of a sudden you just started seeing him drift away, that no one was even talking about him anymore. And then, he was getting some injuries here and there, but then he comes to Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, and he was able to explode with Trevor Lawrence. I think he's bound to have another great year. Last year, he was just a breakout tight end. No one was really thinking of him. He wasn't on anybody's radar, but he ended up exploding, especially on the second half of the season last year. So Evan Ingram at 8. He had 73 catches, 766 yards, 10 yards per reception, and 4 touchdowns. All in all, pretty good stats receiving for Evan Ingram, and that's even with a slower first start of the season. So I'm looking for him to probably keep around the same numbers, especially with the addition of Calvin Ridley into the offense. I'm not going to say that he's going to have 100 catches and 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, but I think this is right here, what you're seeing the stats are, is a great production for Evan Ingram and what the Jacksonville Jaguars need in a tight end like him. So Evan Ingram will be number 8. Number 7, Kyle Pitts. It hurts me, 1, to put him this low with his athletic ability and all his tools that he has as a player. But 2, it also hurts me to put him this high again. I mean, how many times is he going to let us down? Especially fantasy football owners, he has let down drastically. I know people who, especially myself, when he came into the scene, I was in awe of him. Just his athletic ability. He could split out wide and be a wide receiver. I mean, he's one of those athletic ability tight ends that we have never seen. Maybe besides Travis Kelce's the closest thing, but I think his athleticism just blows Travis right out of the water. But he's got to be able to put up the numbers to show for it. this will be my last time he will be in my top 10 if he has another year like he has been having. I mean, we got to get the guy the ball. I mean, like I just said, he's the most athletic tight end out there. How do you not get him the ball? So I'm looking for hopefully Arthur Smith and those Falcons to get Kyle Pitts the ball more, and he can explode and have a breakout year finally that we've been all anticipating for. So Kyle Pitts at 7, some stats, only 28 receptions, 356 yards, 12 yards per reception, and 2 receiving touchdowns. I mean, a guy with his ability and his attributes and his athletic ability, how does he not have at least double these stats? I mean, he should easily have 56 receptions, like 800 yards. I mean, basically Evan Ingram's number. He should be better than Evan Ingram or have those same numbers. I mean, that's what we kind of anticipate when we talk about Kyle Pitts. So hopefully he can prove himself to everybody, and he can explode, maybe get into the top 5 next year. Hopefully, I don't want to put him outside the top 10. He's just way too gifted of a player for me to put him outside the top 10 right now. So Kyle Pitts at 7. Moving on to 6, we got Dalton Schultz. I like Dalton Schultz as personally. I mean, I'm not a Cowboys fan or a Texans fan, but I like Dalton Schultz and his ability. He's a good security blanket. He kind of reminds me with his ability like Pat Freiermuth. I mean, he's Mr. Consistent. He was Dak Prescott's security blanket. He exploded with Dak, and now he's over in Houston with C.J. Stroud, and I'm looking for C.J. Stroud to actually utilize Dalton Schultz a lot this year. I mean, he's going to be one of his, you can call him a check down. He won't be the first option in that offense, I don't think, but he'll definitely be the second option, especially when under pressure. So Dalton Schultz at 6. Let's look at some stats. 57 receptions, 577 yards, 10 yards per reception, and 5 receiving touchdowns. I like Dalton Schultz, especially in the red zone. He's a really good tight end in the red zone. His ability to get open in the short distances and find himself with scoring touchdowns for his team. So I like Dalton Schultz heading in this year, especially with a young quarterback. I think he'll be utilized a lot this year. So Dalton Schultz at 6. Moving on to 5, we have T.J. Hawkinson. I might argue to put him higher. Kind of he gets shaded because now he's with the Lions, so that's already like when he was playing there, he was going to get like thrown under the pillow a little bit. And then he's now behind Justin Jefferson, so I feel like he's a little not talked about as much as he should be as a player. He could definitely be higher on my list. His stats from last year you're about to see are just outrageous for a tight end. Besides, I mean, Travis Kelce's putting up the numbers and Mark Andrews, but he could easily be 3 or 4 or 5. And he won't be lower than 5, but he won't be first or second in my opinion. But T.J. Hawkinson is going to slide into my 5 spot, and we're going to look at some stats from last year for him. 86 receptions, just shy of 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, he's going to benefit so much, again, being in this offense. Now Kirk has somebody reliable enough to throw the ball to besides Justin Jefferson, so I expect him to explode, and especially with the lack of running back talent with Dalvin Cook leaving, it's going to open up, make them pass the ball more. I can't see them using Madison like they did Dalvin Cook, so I'm expecting him to have another year just like you're seeing right here from last year. So T.J. Hawkinson, like I said, could be higher, would not complain with anybody or argue for him to be in the 3-4 spot, but for me personally, I'm going to put him at the 5 spot. At number 4, Dallas Goedert. I like Dallas personally. I like his ability, his demeanor when he's out in the field. He's definitely probably where I would, if I redid this again, I probably would put TJ in the 4 and put Dallas Goedert at the 5. I mean, I probably should have done that, but I don't know why. I just kind of appreciate Dallas Goedert's game a lot. So Dallas Goedert with Jalen Hurts, I mean, he's a really good security blanket. He's just like a glorified Dalton Schultz in my opinion. So Dallas at 4. Let's go look at some stats. 55 receptions, 700 yards, 13 yards per reception, and 3 touchdowns. He's just a reliable option out there for Jalen Hurts, and his ability is just as good as anybody in the top 5. Like to see him block a little better, but that's about it for That's about it for Dallas Goedert. So at number 3, obviously George Kittle, the maniac. I mean, anytime I hear George Kittle, I just think about when he was in the locker room and he was saying, the first hit is always the worst, so I like to get it out of the way. And he just starts headbutting a wall. I mean, that's how big of a freak this guy is. A good freak, but that's how big of a freak he is. I mean, he can block, catch. He can do it all, and at the level he is, I mean, he's definitely a center point for the 49ers. So George Kittle at 3. Let's look at some stats for him. 60 receptions, 765 receiving yards, almost 13 yards per reception, and 11 touchdowns. I mean, talk about someone you're looking for in the red zone. It's George Kittle. I mean, you're bound to find him in the end zone, or in the end zone. Yeah, in the end zone. But he's just so strong. I mean, he's one of those guys you could throw it to from the 10-yard line, catch at the 5, and he's going to barrel roll himself into the end zone. He's just that strong, and he is a psycho. So George Kittle at 3, no question about it. Coming in at number 2, Mark Andrews. Easily one of the most, besides Travis Kelce, one of the most consistent pass catchers at the tight end position. It's helped so much for him having Lamar Jackson, 1, and then 2, the lackluster of a wide receiver room that the Ravens have had over the years that he's been there. So it's allowed him to explode as a receiving tight end. So, I mean, his stats for the past couple of years have been outrageous, and we're going to look at him right now from last year. 73 catches, 847 receiving yards, almost 12 yards per reception and 5 touchdowns. I think these numbers are only going to go up because Lamar's back, and he missed some time last year. So those are some definite numbers that we're missing from this from these stats from last year. I expect Lamar to drastically improve these numbers for him. So Mark Andrews at 2. And coming in at 1, I mean, no question about it, it's Travis Kelce. Now, he is arguably probably going to go down as the greatest tight end of all time, especially receiving tight end of all time, between like him and Gronk, and like you'll have these names of Gates and Gonzalez, and Gronk especially will be his main contender. But I could see him definitely being talked for one of the greatest of all time tight ends to ever play the game. So Travis Kelce, there's not much you can really say about him. I mean, just go watch him play. Always open. Patrick Mahomes is always getting him the ball. His ability to catch the ball and get more yards after the catch is just top tier. So Travis Kelce at 1. Let's look at those stats. 110 receptions, 1,300 yards receiving, 12 yards per reception, and 12 touchdowns. I mean, we didn't, in our last video for wide receivers, you didn't even see these for most of the wide receivers that I listed. I mean, that's how freakishly he is as a tight end. To put these numbers up is absurd, and I mean, he's going to keep doing it for as long as he has Patrick Mahomes and his body can hold up and stay healthy. He's going to put these numbers up every year for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, no wide receivers or wide receivers in that offense. It doesn't matter. Pat's getting him the ball. So, easily, no question about it, Travis Kelce, the number 1 spot. So let's slide back up to the top 10 list again. Let's get another look at it. At 1, Travis Kelce. 2, Mark Andrews. 3, George Kittle. 4, Dallas Goedert. Could be T.J. Hawkinson there. 5, T.J. Hawkinson. 6, Dalton Schultz. 7, Kyle Pitts. 8, Evan Ingram. 9, Pat Freiermuth. And 10, Darren Waller. And so that is my top 10 tight ends headed into the season. And that's going to do it for this list. And our short series of ranking players by position. My next video like this will be putting up the top 5 most to prove players going into the year, and then also the top 5 most to prove coaches going into the year, whether they're going to be on the hot seat or they have a lot of pressure to get it going this year for their given team. So that's going to do it for the tight end video today. Please, as always, like and comment. My video really will help me grow as I'm trying to pursue this. Also, don't be afraid to drop some comments in the comment section below. Give me some feedback, some suggestions, what I could do differently to keep improving. So until next time.